Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a company you've probably never really thought about, but I can almost guarantee you're using their technology right at this very moment. It's kind of wild. Okay, let's get into it. So just think for a second. Your phone, that smart TV on your wall, the screen in your car, heck, maybe even your refrigerator. What's the one thing they all have in common? It sounds like a simple enough question, right? But the answer? Well, it's pretty surprising. The answer is an invisible blueprint. Yeah, you heard that right. A sort of shared DNA, a common technological ancestor. You see, nearly every smart device on the planet is built using a core set of instructions that come from just one company. And the craziest part? This company doesn't even manufacture a single physical chip itself.
That company is ARM. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how this company from the UK became the secret, invisible architect of, well, pretty much our entire digital lives. This quote here from Jay Goldberg just nails it. Think about it this way. A company like Apple or NVIDIA, they're like a star architect. They're designing a stunning skyscraper. They don't want to waste their time and brainpower designing the pipes, the wiring, the basic plumbing for every single project. That's where ARM comes in. They provide the absolute best world-class standardized plumbing, the core designs, that all these other brilliant architects then use to build their masterpieces. So how do they make money? It's genius, really. A brilliant one-two punch. First, a chip designer, say Qualcomm, pays ARM a big one-time fee just to get access to the blueprints. That's step one. But here's the real kicker, the magic part. For every single chip that Qualcomm then produces using that blueprint, ARM gets a little slice of the pie, a royalty. And we're talking about billions of chips. It's an incredible business model because they're not spending money on factories. They're just licensing an idea over and over and over again. And look, these royalties aren't huge on their own. For a brand new $1,000 smartphone, ARM's cut might only be something like $2.50. It sounds like almost nothing, right? But then you zoom out. You realize their partners are shipping billions and billions of these devices. Suddenly, all those tiny little $2.50 slices add up to an absolutely colossal pile of cash. It is all about the volume. So the big question is, how on earth did this happen? How did ARM end up in this unbelievable position? Well, it all goes back to a single crucial decision, a huge bet they made years and years ago. All right, a super quick history lesson. The company actually started out as Acorn Computers in the UK. Then, back in 1990, it got spun off into this new venture called ARM. And one of its first big partners was Apple. Apple needed a special chip for this new handheld device they were making, the Newton. Now, the Newton, it kind of flopped, but the project made ARM profitable. The real game changer, though, came in 2007, the iPhone. All of a sudden, the entire world needed powerful little computers in their pockets that could last all day on a single charge. And that was the big moment, the fork in the road. Back then, the undisputed king of the castle was Intel with its x86 chips. All they cared about was raw, brute force power for desktop PCs. High performance, but also super high power consumption. ARM went the other way. They bet on a different design called RISC, which was all about being incredibly power efficient. At the time, it seemed like a small, kind of boring niche. But that niche, things that run on batteries, was about to blow up and become, the biggest market in the history of technology. And the payoff for that bet? Just look at this. A 99% market share in smartphone processors. I mean, that's not just market share, that's a monopoly. It's total, complete domination. It's fair to say they didn't just win the mobile war, they basically were the mobile war. Okay, so we know how they won. Now let's talk about why it's so incredibly difficult for anyone else to challenge them. What makes their position so secure? What makes ARM this impenetrable fortress? Well, they have what investors call a moat, and ARM's is like something out of a medieval castle. It is deep, wide, and full of piranhas. First, the switching costs. If you're a company using ARM, moving to something else would cost you billions of dollars and years of work. Then there's the ecosystem. You have literally millions of software developers who already know how to write code for ARM. That's a huge, huge advantage. And finally, remember those small royalties? They're so tiny that it's just not worth the massive headache for a customer to even think about switching. Why would you bother? But no fortress is truly perfect, right? ARM has a couple of cracks in its armor. The first one is customer concentration. Over half of all their money comes from just their top 5 customers. That is a lot of eggs in one basket. The second, and maybe even bigger issue, is ARM China. Almost a quarter of their revenue comes from this separate company in China that they don't even fully control. And that opens them up to all sorts of geopolitical drama and risk. So ARM completely conquered the world of mobile. But now there's a new war brewing, the war for AI. And guess who's right in the middle of it all over again? It's incredible, really, because the exact same thing that helped them win mobile is now their biggest weapon in the AI fight: energy efficiency. These huge AI data centers are insanely power-hungry. They guzzle electricity. So big players like NVIDIA, Amazon, Microsoft, they're all turning to ARM's designs to build their next-gen AI chips. Why? Because ARM lets them cram more computing power into their data centers without the electricity bill going to the moon. But there's a new challenger on the horizon. It's called RISC-V, and it's a totally different beast. See, RISC-V is open source. That means it's free, no license fees. It's the ultimate showdown. ARM's polished, proprietary, expensive model versus a free, open, collaborative one. Now, to be clear, RISC-V is way behind ARM right now in terms of performance and its ecosystem. But big companies like Google and Qualcomm are starting to put their weight behind it. It's a serious long-term threat. And all of this whole incredible story, brings us to the money, to the world of Wall Street and some absolutely mind-boggling numbers. Just look at that number. 97% gross margin. That's what happens when your main product is an idea. Once you've done the hard work of designing the blueprint, it costs you basically nothing to sell another copy. Those are the kinds of profit margins you expect from a software company, not a company at the very heart of the world's hardware. But they're not just kicking back and counting all that cash. They're taking a huge chunk of it, over half of all their revenue, and plowing it straight back into R&D. We're talking more than $2 billion a year. That is a massive, massive bet on themselves to stay ahead of the curve and fend off challengers like RISC-V. Okay, so phenomenal company, right? But here's the twist. The financial analysis from our source material suggests that the stock market might be a little too excited. Their conclusion was that the stock is, well, greatly overvalued. In fact, their analysis put the fair value of the company way below its current trading price, about 56% lower to be exact. So here's the bottom line. There is absolutely no question that ARM is one of the most critical, dominant, and brilliant technology companies on Earth. Its business is a fortress. But does its massive stock market valuation reflect that amazing reality? Or does it reflect a huge, maybe even a rational wave of hype and optimism about AI? Is the price right? That's the $150 billion question we'll leave you with. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.